the Officer Tatum. Okay. There are witnesses placing him there at 6. And I want to be very clear, gentlemen, that I'm not convinced he drowned just because somebody said so. Even if he did drown, that does not mean that there wasn't foul play. Why is that mark on the back of his head? Was he hit on the head and fell in the water? Was he held under the water? Was it an accident? I don't know. But I am very interested in witness.
A young man stepped off a boat. Hours later, his body washed ashore on an island. By then, the moment that mattered most, the last time anyone had seen him alive, had already fractured into competing accounts of the same afternoon. It was July 4th when Nolan Wells and 3 friends, Warren, Morgan, and Jax, arrived at Horn Island, Mississippi, aboard a boat called the Triton.
They are convinced of the friends, and when I say quoties, I don't mean they are or they're not friends, because I don't know. The young men on the Triton boat that took Nolan Wells to Horn Island, many argue he was on the boat on the return when foul play occurred. Many argue he was not. In fact, the timeline has blown up because there are reports that Nolan Wells was seen on the island after the friend's boat left, which would exonerate them. Is that true? I don't know, and I'm trying to find out. For me, nobody's guilty, and everybody's a suspect.
The island was crowded that day. Summer crowds anchored dozens of vessels in tight clusters, a floating neighborhood of day, drinkers, and anchored people. Wells spent hours on the beach. Witnesses later reported seeing him with a young woman identified as Katie. Someone his friends said they did not initially know. Sometime around 4:30 p.m., the Triton departed. According to the account his friends provided to investigators, Wells was not on that boat. Yet what happened next depended entirely on who was asked. 2 witnesses came forward claiming they had seen Wells alive on the island at approximately 6 p.m., roughly 90 minutes after the boat left.
So, Nancy, look, we have had multiple witnesses reach out to us, 2 confirmed witnesses that saw Nolan Wells on the island around 6 p.m. on July 4th. Well after the Triton, as you said, left around 4:30. And so those witnesses have went to investigators, they've talked to the police, and they've done what they're supposed to do. We've cooperated 100%. So have
verified that testimony would establish a critical fact. Wells had remained on land after his friends departed. That fact alone would mean they could not have been present at whatever moment claimed his life. But verification proved elusive. The identity of these witnesses remained protected. Their relationship to Wells was unclear. Whether they knew each other, whether they had discussed their recollection before approaching investigators, whether they had been intoxicated when they made their observation. These standard evidentiary questions went publicly unanswered. The legal defense for the 3 young men rested substantially on this claim. Yet the witnesses themselves remained shadowed, their credibility untested in any formal proceeding.
Well, I'm not sure if the witnesses saw that picture that you just put on screen, but I can confirm to you that these witnesses know Nolan. They've known him for a long time. They were able to make a positive ID, and they told that to investigators. They told them that from the very start.
Had they been drinking?
That I do not know.
How are they sure it was 6 o'clock? Look, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm asking the questions I would ask in court. How do they know it was 6 o'clock? Did they go, oh, there's Nolan Wells at 6 p.m.?
Well, I'm pretty sure, Nancy, they were aware of the time. I'm not sure if they were drinking or not, but they're the ones that came forward to police and investigators, and that's their story to tell. What I'm telling you is they made a positive ID on Nolan Wells around 6 o'clock, and they told that to investigators, all while our clients were off the island around 4:30. So we have positive identification on Nolan on the island an hour and a half after our clients left. So, as you know from your experience as a prosecutor, they can't do two things at once. They can't be on the island at 6 o'clock and be on the boat going off the island at 4:30. So,
Video evidence emerged from the boat itself, footage showing the Triton's occupants as it
Positive
departed.
ID. Hey, speaking of a positive ID, control room, please pull up a photo that we showed a couple of days ago. There are 2 or 3 women, white females, walking along the beach, as I recall, each clad in a bikini. There is one, I believe, a white male and one black male walking with them. That, can you zoom in a little bit? That's not really helping me that much. For instance, did your witnesses know Nolan? Can they identify him? Because I'm looking right at this and I cannot identify if the male behind the female on the white, the female wearing a white hat, I can't tell if that's Nolan or not. It's a very blurry photo. I can't make it out. So, do your witnesses know him? I mean, let me see my guess, please. Mr. Polczyk, Mr. Cox, I know the two of you. I don't see both of them. There they are. The two of you have tried a lot of cases, as have I. To get in or attack an eyewitness, you, and it's in the code, the official code of Mississippi annotated. There are prescribed methods under which you cross-examine an eyewitness. For instance, does the witness know the target? Was the lighting sufficient? How far away was the witness? What were the conditions of the eyewitness identification? Was the eyewitness inebriated or high or otherwise incapacitated? How far away were they? Do they wear glasses? It goes on and on and on. It's laid out in the code. Tell me about these witnesses. How do they know it was Nolan?
The images were poor quality and distant.
none of these boys have a story that is untrue. Don't you think that after all this time, somebody would have snitched? That somebody wouldn't be able to keep their story straight? No. Look, these boys are telling the truth.
Typically, you're absolutely right. That's why I usually don't believe in conspiracies, because nobody can keep their yap shut. Somebody blabs.
And Nancy, now I'll say something about the CETO call. I have heard a lot of versions of the CETO call, and most of them are either completely fake or AI or doctored. And unfortunately, for folks that are doing that, that may become the subject of one or more lawsuits.
A figure visible in one frame, someone bent over, only legs and swimsuit distinguishable, was identified as Wells by someone, somewhere. Yet most viewers could not independently confirm the identification. A photograph later circulated, claiming to place Wells on the island at 6 p.m., but it too was grainy and inconclusive. The figure in the image, if it was Wells at all, could have been anyone. What was indisputable was the body. Medical examination confirmed trauma.
There's a big honking mark, subcutaneous, deep reddening tissue on his occipital. If I hit somebody in the back of the head, it'd be right there.
There was no indication that there was any kind of contusions on the hand, the arm, no kind of defensive event.
A deep mark was documented on the back of his head, the kind of blunt force impact would produce.
But I'm not convinced he drowned just because somebody said so. Even if he did drown, that does not mean that there wasn't foul play. Why is that mark on the back of his head? Was he hit on the head and fell in the water? Was he held under the water? Was it an accident? I don't know. But I am very interested in witnesses that place him alive at 6 p.m. Please tell me, Tyler Cox.
The medical examiner deemed the findings significant enough to remove both the lungs and the neck for detailed analysis. The lungs suggested investigation into whether drowning had occurred. The removal of the throat tissue raised questions that neither investigators nor attorneys answered
I've
publicly.
heard all sorts of inflammatory things, but the one thing that, well, many things are very interesting and probative. For instance, why was Nolan's neck of so much interest to the original medical examiner that it was removed? His foot wasn't removed. His toe wasn't removed. His ear wasn't removed. Why his neck? The lungs and the neck were removed, which obviously Edward Pulsick touches on COD, cause of death. I understand why the medical examiner took his lungs. He had to run tests on them to determine, did he drown? Of course, all three of us know you can drown and there still be foul play. Somebody whacked you on the head. If somebody held you underwater, it could be any number of things. Or it could be an innocent drowning. But why the throat? What was curious about the throat, Ed? Were there marks on the throat? Was there a ligature mark? Was there manual strangulation? Was there a compression? Were there bruises? Were there scratches? I don't know. Was a hyoid missing? I could go on, but I won't. Do either of you know what was of interest to the medical examiner in the removal of Nolan's throat?
I'll tell you this. Listen, we're not coroners. We're not medical examiners. We want to know what happened to him just as much as everyone else. Quite frankly, more. Because Nolan was their best friend. Warren, Morgan, Jax. Nolan was their best friend. We want to know what happened. We haven't examined Nolan's body. We're not scientists.
I just thought maybe you had been somehow told why they took his throat. Okay, that's a note. We don't know why they took his throat.
Yeah, we don't want to speculate.
Ligature marks, manual strangulation, fractures to the hyoid bone. The autopsy record remained sealed. The official cause of death, if concluded, was not released. This absence was itself probative. A straightforward drowning would typically be certified and closed within weeks. The ongoing uncertainty suggested evidence of possible foul play, or at minimum, circumstances complex enough to warrant continued investigation beyond the standard timeline. The three friends' account of their actions contained a credibility challenge. They initially stated Wells was with a girl we don't know, language suggesting someone outside their circle. Yet within hours, they had obtained Katie's contact information and were texting with her. Their explanation was functional, as they realized Wells was missing. They contacted everyone they could reach, eventually learning Katie's number through mutual friends.
It was later that night. I believe it was around 9 or 10 o'clock, maybe even 11, that they start saying, oh, well, has anyone seen Nolan? Where's Nolan? Did he make it back home? Does anybody know? They start calling around, texting, asking everybody. And once they determined that no one had the answer about where Nolan was, that's when they called Christine Wells. And then they stay on the phone. My client stayed on the phone with Christine Wells for about 5 or 6 minutes. And then he tells her, look, I'm going to call the Coast Guard just to make sure. And he did. He stays on the phone with the Coast Guard for 21 minutes.
Okay.
When they reached her, Katie stated she believed Wells had left with them on the boat.
There may be an innocent explanation for that or not. So, explain to me, who were they talking about when they said he was with a girl we don't know her? He had never met her before, but yet they were texting with Katie, the girl he had been with. I'll throw that to you, Tyler. Do you know the answer to that?
Sure. So they didn't know Katie, and they believed that Nolan didn't know Katie before that day. But you have to remember, once they started getting suspicious that Nolan wasn't with them anymore, they start asking themselves, okay, well, where's Nolan? They start texting everyone that they knew. Hey, have you seen Nolan? Do you know where Nolan is? Did he make it back home? All before they called Christine Wells that night, they start asking everybody. And so eventually they end up getting, through mutual friends, whoever, Katie's number. And so and I believe it was maybe either Snapchat or text message. They got in communication with Katie. And Katie says, I don't know. We thought he was leaving with y'all. Well, I don't believe that's the case, obviously, because he did not leave with our boys. We don't know what happened to him. But
That statement presented its own ambiguity. Either Katie was mistaken about Wells' intentions, or the witnesses claiming to have seen him at 6 p.m. were mistaken about his location. Either Wells changed his plans after Katie assumed he would leave, or he had never intended to depart with his friends in the first place. The contradiction could not be resolved without determining which account was accurate. The friends' cooperation with authorities presented selective transparency. They granted investigators access to their phones for phone dumps, cellular records that ping off towers and establish movement across time.
Let's get it all. That's the thing. That's the beauty of it. When you're telling the truth and you're representing three innocent young men, the beauty of it is you want more evidence.
we gave our phones up. We let them do a phone dump of our phones.
Which I find very, very interesting. Because a phone dump, everybody shows where the phone's been, what time it was there. It's not hard to do. It pings off phone cell towers, and you can tell as it progresses along. Not hard. Easy. And I find that probative because it will tell me when the boys went to Horn Island, the young men, and when they returned. It's better than an eyewitness to me.
GPS data from the boat itself existed in principle, available to be subpoenaed or examined. Yet these crucial records were not publicly disclosed. The friends' attorneys declined polygraph examinations, a choice framed as legally sound. Reputable defense counsel typically advise against such tests, regardless of client guilt or innocence, since polygraphs remain inadmissible in criminal trials absent both sides' advance consent, a scenario that almost never occurs.
Nancy, my clients have not taken a polygraph test, and I can tell you why. Because any lawyer worth their salt is going to tell their clients not to take a polygraph test under any circumstances. Two of my clients went in and made statements with me. We're not going to not going to do a polygraph test because, one, as you know, they're not admissible in court. And so it wasn't going to be admissible anyway. You should never, ever, if you're a lawyer, allow your clients to take a polygraph test. Now, the girl that Nolan was with took a stress analysis voice test, and so did the other boy. So that's the test they took. Both of them passed. And so, again, no lawyer worth the salt is going to tell his clients to take a polygraph test or anything like that.
I would like to corroborate part of what Tyler Cox just said. Any defense attorney, whether they're truly convinced their client is innocent or guilty, they're not going to allow a poly. I've never seen that. I've had a couple of lawyers, maybe 3, in all the years I practiced, all the people I put behind bars, consent before trial to a poly. 3. And they were all criminal cases that carried severe penalties. So what he's saying is true. Even if you think your client is innocent, very rarely will you see a defense lawyer say, sure, take a poly. However, I disagree with you regarding their admittance into court. Polygraphs are allowed in civil trials. O.J. Simpson, he flunked horribly. And if both sides stipulate to the polygraph's admittance before the polygraph is taken, it can come into a criminal trial. The reality is that never happens. That never happens.
Right.
But their cooperation extended selectively. Wells' phone, potentially containing final communications, location data, or evidence of his last hours, was never voluntarily surrendered to authorities.
Can anybody tell me where Nolan's phone is?
Good question.
Right now, as we sit here today.
Has it ever been turned over to authorities?
No, it has not.
You're sure?
Yeah. I believe that Ben Crump, using local counsel, sent a letter out just last night, gave it to Don Lemon on his show, and Don Lemon on his show confirmed that they have not given the phone to investigators.
Well, that's on investigators because they need to get the phone and they need to look at it.
How are they going to get it if they don't give it to them?
Warrant? Subpoena Ducas
Based on
Tecum? Grand
what?
jury subpoena Ducas Tecum?
Sure.
When investigators could seek it through warrant or subpoena, they had not nearly 30 days into a death investigation.
Hasn't been to the grand jury
There
yet.
is. Are you telling me you don't think a grand jury is convening on this?
I think they are. I don't think they have looked at
Well,
the
you said,
case
how do you
yet.
get the phone? You obviously get the phone. Police go say, hey, can we look at the phone? And they go, sure, here it is. That's one way.
Well,
Or you're
what if they don't give it to
investigating a
them?
potential crime. You get a warrant and you go, hey, give me the phone. Here's the warrant. That's two ways. Or you get a grand jury or a judge's order. There's all sorts of ways to get that phone.
Well, Nancy,
You could
Nancy,
just ask and they hand it over.
Yeah, Nancy,
Why didn't they give it to
why
him?
has the? Yeah, Nancy, why? Yeah, why? Why is that phone hasn't been turned over? Why? Why?
I guess
Why would
it
the
hasn't
DA's
been
office
asked
need to
for.
get a warrant?
But I think it should be, and I think it should be asked for. Look, I am not stirring the Nolan Wells phone pot with you. I got bigger fish to fry with you two gentlemen. I'm just curious. I mean, wouldn't that put a lot to bed if we could look at the phone and look at the GPS tracker on it, look at the route? I mean, look.
Yeah,
I know
we
where my
want more
twins are
evidence.
right now because they got Live 360. Yay.
Nancy,
Why can't we
want
look
more,
at that? I mean,
Nancy, we want more evidence. Let's get it all. That's the thing. That's the beauty of it. When you're telling the truth and you're representing.
That restraint suggested either that they believed they possessed sufficient information already, or that available evidence had not yet established probable cause sufficient to justify legal compulsion. The withholding of the phone itself became interpretable, either exculpatory or strategic. The Coast Guard call presented
Look,
another
anybody
evidential
can
layer.
Adjust the gain. Anybody can enhance it or sweeten it. But it doesn't change the fact that just because you put words over some audio means that those words are now attributable to what is on the call. Look, another boy called Cito. We have video that was released of Brandon Tatum. He posted it, and it shows who all was on the boat. At no point in time does this Cito call ever, not once, where you find any sort of mention of Nolan being on the boat, of something happening to Nolan. I cannot state clearly enough, Nolan was not on the boat when it departed around 4:30. Look, the video that you're showing now, does anyone look like, and look, there's the boy that's on the Cito call right there. Does anyone look like there's a body on the boat or something had just
A
happened?
recording existed of emergency services dispatched for a missing person at sea. Versions of this audio proliferated online, each claiming to reveal damning content. People on the boat discussing what had happened, discussing their stories, discussing evidence. Experts offered conflicting assessments. Some concluded the recordings had been doctored, manipulated, or AI generated. Others insisted they bore markers of authenticity. The proliferation of fraudulent versions corrupted the evidentiary value of any single version. Without the original, unedited recording released officially, the call functioned primarily as fodder for speculation and competing narratives. Horn Island itself became contested
and I can tell
terrain.
you this, Nancy, one thing about this island, I did have the opportunity to go to Horn Island. And when you go to the island, everything starts to make sense. The first picture was maybe not so accurate. If you go to the part of Horn Island where, these events all occurred, you see that there are really no trees on that part of the island. It's flat, it's open, there are no visual obstructions, so there's no trees, there's no shelter, there's no nothing, and it was broad daylight with thousands of people there. meaning there was no opportunity for foul play during daylight hours. And
Those who had visited the location emphasized its openness. See, no trees to conceal activity, no structures to provide shelter, thousands of people present during daylight, boats clustered close enough that activity in one would be visible to occupants of adjacent vessels. This geography, they argued, made daylight foul play essentially impossible. A sustained assault, a held under drowning, a deliberate harm, all would require concealment the island's landscape did not
starts
permit.
to unravel.
Ed,
You have to
Ed,
go to the island.
Please,
You have to go to
there's
the island.
opportunity for foul play. He could have been walked
Not
on
in
the
this
head on a
environment.
boat
Not
and pushed
in-
over. There's.
I'm telling you, not in this
It doesn't have to
environment.
be
I
on the
was there.
beach. It could be
I'm telling you.
anywhere.
You got to understand, it's a 10-mile long barrier island, but it's only a few hundred yards wide in most places. There's nowhere to hide.
Let me see the video and show it to Ed and Tyler. The video of all those boats. Anything could have happened between those boats. Anything.
Well, but
Even
but
an
Nancy,
accident could happen between those boats. And
but
so
Nancy-
many people are drunk, I don't think they're paying attention.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? We could always say anything is possible. An asteroid could strike right now. But I am telling you that there are a lot of people who have talked about this case and have said things that are not true, and they haven't been to the island. They've got to go to the island. If you don't go to the island, you can't speak with authority about the case. And I won't name names, but a lot of people who have hurt these fine young men and have defamed them, they've never visited the island, and I'm willing to bet that they've never visited the islands. Look at it right there. That shot you have right there. Broad daylight with thousands of people there. The picture speaks for itself.
I agree with what you're saying. I agree that it would be nearly impossible for foul play to take place on that beach. Again, I direct your attention to the gathering of boats with the boats closely together. Everybody's drinking, nobody's paying attention. Like, I can't tell what's going on between the boats at a distance. I don't know. I don't know what's happening in the water. I don't know. That
I can tell you
said,
this.
I agree. I don't think anything
Yes.
happened out in the plain view on the beach. But there are other
Ed.
alternatives.
Yet the island was not uniformly exposed. At night, or at the water's edge away from the congregated day, drinkers, isolation became possible. Wells could have fallen, struck his head on a submerged object, been pulled under by currents. Or he could have encountered someone. The young woman Katie, a stranger, an accident, a confrontation that escalated. The evidence did not exclude possibilities. It only narrowed the temporal window in which they could have occurred. By the 30-day mark, the case existed in public limbo.
There has never been one shred, one iota, one piece, nothing. There is no evidence that ties Warren, Morgan, or Jax to any crime because they did not commit a crime. They had
That
nothing
may very well
whatsoever
be
to
true.
do. Right.
And
The death was confirmed. The manner remained disputed. The parties involved had provided some statements, granted selective access, withheld other evidence. Witnesses claimed sightings, their credibility was untested. Forensic evidence existed, its meaning was contested or withheld. A young man was dead, his body examined, his autopsy sealed. The three friends continued to proclaim their innocence, their lawyers appearing on national platforms
Sir,
to
go
defend
ahead.
them.
Why in the world would these witnesses make themselves public after you've seen more than 30 days of death threats, in-person threats, credible threats, people making threats and getting arrested, all geared towards these boys and others? Why would they become public? Why would they
here's
come
one
out
answer.
public?
One answer is they're telling the truth and they want to put it out there. Another possibility
truth to
is
investigators.
everybody already knew who they were, so they went out on Tatum to exonerate themselves. I mean, that could go either way. But I see what you're saying. I get it.
And Nancy,
still don't know.
Nancy,
have you ever
Yes.
seen any other people accused of the crimes that online internet trolls have accused these boys of, go and do podcasts, do interviews, have their attorneys go and advocate for them like this on a national platform like this. If we weren't 100% sure and they weren't 100%
Whether
sure,
that aggressive visibility constituted exoneration or calculated strategy remained a matter of interpretation. One question endured unanswered. If Wells was genuinely on the island at 6 p.m., alive and visible, what happened in the hours that followed? Who was the last person to see him? How did he end up
We
in the
know
water?
the truth. And my burning question at this hour is, if those witnesses are telling the truth, that Nolan Wells was alive at 6 p.m., how did he die? Who was the last person with him? And why, tonight, 1 month later, do we not know the truth of what happened to Nolan Wells?
The investigation remained open.
Nancy, we have told you, we've told everyone we could, we've shouted it from the rooftops. The same story over and over again. There's no other way to say it. It's like banging our heads against the wall because nobody, at least in the online atmosphere, will listen to it. We've said the same thing over and over and over again. We can't say it any other different way. That's the truth. The truth is what it is.
Hi, guys. If you know or think you know anything regarding this case, and I implore the FBI to enter the investigation, dial 228-769-3063. Repeat, 228-769-3063. There is a $125,000 reward for information leading to the truth of what happened to Nolan Wells. I also implore you, please, we can take the trolling online, don't care, but the death threats, no, to anybody.
The truth of Nolan Wells' final hours had not yet been determined.